この戦争を終わらせに来た。
What's up, internet? Now, I'm real Phils. That's what you can call me, pretty much. Don't worry about all the other stuff. We're here for a very specific reason today. For whatever reason, there's still a debate going on as to if hitboxes are cheating, if this should be allowed, if that should be allowed, if this, that, and the third is going on. And I decided that today I'm just going to end it, and I'm going to say what objectively needs to be done about these controllers as a person that has this. This thing right here that has every single layout on it, with the exception of the antagonist. Now, if you want my opinion on the antagonist, to be honest, as far as I care, you can unban it. I don't care, but I'm not really going to get into that because unlike most people, if I haven't used something, then I'm probably just not going to talk about it because I haven't used the antagonist. So I really don't know how much of a nightmare of regulation and all that other stuff it would be to try and, stem that or whatever. But let's make this simple. So I want to look at the arguments that I hear most often regarding hitbox, all this other stuff, and I want to actually give reasons as to why really none of that stuff matters generally, and again, what actually needs to be done. Because even like Capcom with the Capcom Pro Tour stuff and all that other stuff, they don't know what they're doing. Because when they sat there and they made it so that you have to have the, the neutral SOCD, and I'm not joking, you can literally hold this stick that I just showed does not have the SOCD update. My other stick that has the exact same layout has the SOCD update or whatever. But just to give you an example of why they need to, generally we need to just have universal rules across all the games if possible. And for me, just to spoil it, universal rules for me is mind your damn business, just legalize basically anything that's not straight up a macro. That's my opinion at this point. But if you hold, for example, down and up on a stick with the SOCD update and you press back or forward, you will walk back or forward. So therefore, if they actually wanted the SOCD update to be what they claim they want it to be, for it to actually be standardized, then what it should have been is if you press down and up and then any button along with that, those also register the neutral. But they didn't do that. So they did create some SOCD shortcuts just off of that. But then the other problem is, and this is important, for example, like the SOCD method that I just said would probably fix some of the other shortcuts that you can do in a lot of games. So for example, in Tekken, if you want the KBD on hitbox, you can hold back, then you tap down, you tap forward, and then that gives you KBD, and then you can just alternate with it, and you can do that with two hands. That's the main method that people KBD with in Tekken. If everything actually cleared the neutral, then that really probably would not make that much of a difference. So then you would have to go like, okay, what SOCD variant are we going to use then to ensure that we don't have this problem? And the thing is, there's not really a SOCD variant that you can use to not have that problem, because every single SOCD variant is going to have its own problems. And honestly, the least problematic one, and no one would like this solution, I'm just going to tell you this now, no one would like this solution that plays on hitbox, plays on crossup, plays on anything that requires SOCD. Nobody would like this solution. The solution is, if we want to actually have stuff be like regular, is first input wins. So if I was to hold back and tap down and then forward with the SOCD, then it would only register the first input that I was holding down or whatever, and that would solve a lot of the shortcuts. Then you really could not use shortcuts the way that you already used them. So for example, if I did that, I'm holding back, I want to press up, I gotta release the back. That gets rid of most of the shortcuts, because most of the shortcuts force things to happen due to abusing the SOCD. They can't naturally happen. But I'ma just go into training mode in a few different games and just talk about like these arguments that people are making that really do not make sense, at least to me. Okay, so I'm just gonna, as I said, I'm just gonna try and go through some of these arguments while just in training mode in a few different games to try and explain exactly why a lot of these arguments do not make sense to me. So the first argument, and this is something that Main Man specifically said like 3 years ago, that I've really found to just be a crock of shit. And I'm gonna be honest, I have nothing against Main Man or anything. It's not about that. It's just that there's a lot of like misinformation on a lot of controllers, and people really do not know what's going on. And for example, a lot of people have seen the video where Main Man was looking at the people do, what was it, the electrics or whatever. So they gave some new players the cross up buttons, and they were able to do electrics or whatever. I mean, this is me trying to use the cross up buttons. I really do not use them for this. Now this is me on stick. As you can see, I'm dropping combos or whatever. But that's not what's important, because I don't use the cross-up buttons for that type of stuff, right? As you can see, I have good control over my movement or whatever on stick. I mean, it's really no big deal. First of all, the thing that's wild about it to me is that the people who have not used crossup think that crossup is an extremely easy layout to use and learn. But what you have to understand is, for example, to do this on player 2 side, to use this layout on player 2 side to do electrics, I have to turn my hand to be like this to an extent, or bring my thumb up to be able to hit the 2 button, right? Or do one of them myriad of things, or do something like this. But you can already see how awkward that is. You can see how awkward that is just by itself in the first place. That's not exactly a free input. On one player side, this is perfectly reasonable, right? But the thing that people like Main Man do not know, because they haven't really used the input method, is that not only is the input awkward, it also adds travel time to the things that you would want to do. So for example, let's say that I want to backdash and then I want to sidewalk on cross up using the SOCD method. You would hold back, then you're gonna alternate between down and forward, and then after that, if I want to use the cross up for it, I have to actually sit here and tap down. So then if I actually want to step, I'm literally better off stepping with the actual cross up button and using the stick for the electric. Why? Because if I simply use the cross up button for that, then I'm putting myself at a disadvantage as far as input speed, right? So that's number one. It's a very awkward input method in many ways. Number two is that the use of the cross up by itself, simply for the fact that it's because of point number one, that it can be an exceedingly awkward input method. The use of it can be extremely limited and extremely niche. You have to keep in mind that I'm actually having to keep the speed of two different input methods in mind at the exact same time. That is a limiting factor, because pressing up on a lever and pressing up on a button like this has two very different response times, which is part of the reason why I play characters that don't need the wave dash generally on hitbox now, because the step is more responsive, right? But I can only wave dash as fast as I need to wave dash on stick. So you have the awkwardness of it. Then you have, what it costs to actually use it because of the awkwardness, meaning it becomes a very niche option. Because I don't really use the cross up portion of the stick for anything usually more than stepping or whatever, right? It has a very different purpose compared to if you were to, for example, somehow have a stick that has two levers on it and find a way to use that so you can move and cover every single move that you make. So for example, on cross up, if I want to step and then block, I can use the button, but the issue is that I still have to, for example, on this side, I'm using my index. So I have to either A, use the index to block, or B, use the middle finger so I can have the ring finger be the electric if I need to do that. So even though you can get on cross up and have easy electrics like this, which if you do get the ability can trivialize a lot of the stuff. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that right now. Even if you were able to completely master cross up and make a lot more inputs trivial, right? That brings me to point number three. Cross up is an inferior input method with stick. Mind you, stick cross up is an inferior input method to stickless cross up. Why? Because the stick still has more travel time and the hitbox is already a superior input device, right? So then the only thing that makes any sense as to why we're having a conversation to ban cross up, and you have a lot of players saying, oh, well, we can't ban hitbox though. That tells me that either A, one, it's biased. Two, they have a misconception about what cross up actually does in general when it comes to having it with a stick. Or number three, they just don't understand SOCD and all this other stuff that they complain about in the first place. And honestly, I think it's a mix of all three. There's absolutely no reason that stick cross up should be banned in any capacity on any game, especially not Street Fighter. Because as I said before, let's say for example that on cross up that you want to step, right? So you want to step or whatever with the cross up buttons, maybe block with them if you coming out of wave dash. Like let's say I'm doing this. So like, do you see how? So you can actually, if you got used to this, you could have 100% perfect wave dash block, right? But look, if you're blocking with the cross up and you aren't using your middle finger, which is itself a problem, because let's say, for example, that you're playing like, let's say that you're playing Bob. If you block with this wave dash block and you block a move that's -9 and you want to go for down back 3 or down back 3+4, which is a relatively safe low, you have to sit here and you see like I'm pressing back on a stick. If you're using your middle finger, you have to move your entire, so you have to slide your entire hand past them first 2 buttons that you have on the top row, simply because the way that your hand works, unless you want to, and let me show you what this looks like. I want to go, I want to wave dash block, right? Let's say that I want to wave dash block and I'm doing whatever it is that I was doing, right? So you're saying, this is what people were saying pretty much. This is pretty much what people were saying. I'm blocking with the back, right? If I use my middle finger to do it, they're saying that I need to do this. So let's say I want to do down back 3. I got to get on the lever, right? Because, you know, I'm not letting go of the lever. There's no reason to do that, right? I got to get on the lever. And let's say that we doing it like actual lever. I got to get on the lever and do this. I got to hold down back on the lever, and I have to do this if I use my middle finger. But if I use my index finger, now I have to slide my entire hand down here to press down back 3 or down back 4. Or, you know, or whatever I'm trying to press, a down back 3+4. I have to take the time to slide my entire hand down to the last row of buttons from the top row because I use my index. But if I use my middle finger, then I have to sit here and split my fingers like I'm Spock from Star Trek and actually try and get what I'm trying to get happen, you know, happen. To actually try and get the situation to happen. Now look. And this is without the cross-up buttons. Do you see that? It's literally the same thing. You just press forward with Kazuya, and then you press down forward, and the timing is mostly solved for you. So like, the stuff that I worked for to have on stick, hitbox makes easy as well. But a lot of players are not talking about banning hitbox anymore. A lot of players are concerned with banning cross-up. Compared to the cross-up or the hitbox, my movement is not equivalent on stick. And believe me, I've tried to really get used to the cross-up. It's so awkward compared to even hitbox and stuff that I really have not had like that much success with it. At the end of the day, and this is going to be point number 4, cross up and hitbox simply have a higher skill ceiling than a lot of other peripherals. But the thing with hitbox and cross up is that by nature they are unintuitive. But number 5, and this going to be the last one for the cross up, I think, out of all the arguments I've seen. Number 5 is simply that people say that using the cross up or using the hitbox. So this just generally for different types of controllers. They say using the cross-up or using the hitbox or whatever takes the skill out of the game, and people are attempting to circumvent the game by using technology the devs couldn't have accounted for. Here's my answer to that. When basketball and other sports were invented, the devs did not account for the people that made basketball did not account for the conditioning and the strength training and all this other stuff that players currently do. We can't sit here and say, oh, well, the devs couldn't have known and they couldn't have intended it this way for this to exist in the way that it does. They couldn't have intended that. They couldn't have done this. Of course they couldn't have. But this is the thing. We're sitting here talking about what the devs did or did not intend, but we have SOCD. We made SOCD to cover for what the devs did not expect to happen. Without SOCD, you can get on Super Turbo right now and walk forward while blocking and holding charge, and you literally cannot be hit. Because of the SOCD, you can hold down back and walk forward and it'll register all inputs, because that was the first fighting game. They didn't expect hitbox and stuff to exist, right? They didn't expect that, but it is what it is. But on the point 6, there's a lot of people that say, well, the fact that SOCD exists is proof enough that hitbox and crossup and all this other stuff is cheating, because you can't do that stuff on a stick by itself, so that's cheating, because that's stuff that another controller does not have access to. Here's my response to that, and this is literally just what it is. Here's my response to that, right? This is my response. If we're going off of what people can or cannot do, then you should be mad at sports as well. No matter how hard I train or no matter how hard I practice, I will never be as good as LeBron James is at basketball. I wasn't born as tall as he was. I wasn't born with the God-given talent. I wasn't born with none of them things. We're talking about fighting games. This is why I'm saying legalize everything that's within reason. Cross up, hitbox, pad, whatever you're trying to use, as long as it isn't a macro, legalize it. And to me, I say that you could legalize antagonists, even though that's kind of a gray area, but I say that you could legalize it. Because what difference does it make? What difference does it make? Seriously, what difference does it make? If we're saying, oh, well, you can't do so-and-so on X controller, okay, then legalize a method that allows people to do so-and-so on X controller. I think that hitbox being allowed or whatever, alternative controllers being allowed is a good thing. But for that to remain as an actual good thing, we should not be penalizing players who do not want to make the switch. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be allowing players to decide what works best for them without putting unnecessary stipulations on it that prevent them from benefiting from the same things. That's my opinion. Why are we sitting here arguing over the cross-up's legality when the thing is, there's stuff on hitbox that you can do that you legitimately cannot do on stick unless you have cross-up buttons. For example, before they had the SOCD change or whatever, you could literally just press up while holding down back and it would override and you would get stuff with no gaps in it. That's not humanly possible on anything but hitbox. But even without SOCD, how are you supposed to do that in one frame on stick? It's really not possible. You have to move through neutral. And if you somehow found a way to not have to move through neutral to do something like that, then it wouldn't matter, because it would take more time to avoid going through neutral to do whatever you're trying to do than it does to just go through neutral. That really is not fair. That really isn't fair. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. But the solution is not, oh, well, we need to selectively pick and choose, you know, what gets banned and all this other stuff. That's not the solution to me. The solution is legalize things and let people decide what works best for them. That's what the solution is to me. But look, now I want to get to the hitbox portion. So I'll be back.